The topic that we're talking about today is the issue of mitigation. Mitigation is important in every criminal case and obviously very important in each defense that is presented. Be mitigation during guilt or innocence phase, and unfortunately mitigation is of vital importance during the punishment phase of the case. Today we will break down mitigation into the various issues that comprise mitigation, what the attorney needs to look for, and the way to go about making the best presentation that one can make of the individual client and his background. As you know, the third issue in a capital case is the issue of mitigation. The jury is asked if, considering the offense itself and the circumstances of the offense, considering the personal culpability of the defendant, the moral background of the defendant, the individual's character, basically the kitchen sink, is there enough mitigation to have a jury return a verdict that will in effect amount to life without parole as opposed to execution. That obviously is the most important of issues relative to mitigation when one is involved in a capital case. When it comes to the adult background and the background of the youthful offender, we need to make a distinction, although the issues are basically the same. The adult and the youthful offender can be looked at least as far as their background is concerned, in areas of mitigation such as mental health history, family background, the various factors that the individual grew up surrounded by. Was the background of the individual a result or contained an abusive parent-child relationship? Was it in a high crime area? What type of school did the individual attend? All of these issues cannot be left unturned. Two individuals are important in situations of this fashion when it deals with, when we're talking about mitigation. An excellent private investigator to research every aspect of that individual's background. And secondly, in many instances, a sociological qualified individual, a psychiatrist, a psychologist, to in effect interpret some of these factors that impact the decision-making process of the individual that you're representing. That's very important. When we talk about youthful offenders, I want to talk a little bit about brain development. We know that when a person is born, the individual's brain is covered in what is known as gray matter. And as the child begins to develop, slowly but surely the gray matter dissipates by a process known as pruning. Much like pruning a rose bush, the frontal lobe and the very important areas of the brain become stronger. Their thought process becomes stronger. And then in early childhood, due to a imaging technique that is pretty recent, we've made a determination that gray matter comes back and actually doesn't really get totally pruned until young adulthood. So when we're representing an individual in their early 20s or late teens and charged with an offense, we need to be aware that the brain isn't fully developed, particularly the frontal lobe that is responsible for such decision-making processes. To give you an example, we often find young adults who will take an automobile that doesn't belong to them and go for a spin, joyriding. An adult whose brain is fully developed, when that person takes that automobile, that individual intends to convert it to his or her own ownership. He steals the car. But both individuals fall under the same parameter as far as punishment is concerned, or as far as guilt or innocence is concerned. The other thing that I want to discuss is something that is very controversial, but something that has to be touched upon when one is representing an individual, and that is drug addiction. It is, in most instances, initially a voluntary act on the part of the individual to take the drug. The individual gets addicted. How does the drug addiction impact the thought processes of the individual's brain? If the drug happens to be paint or Freon, we know that from a biological standpoint, these brain cells actually are burned and die, particularly in the frontal lobe area. So in talking about the thought processes that lead an individual to create a set of circumstances that leads that person in the criminal justice system, we can use the term addiction and try to get it into the guilt or innocence phase, but certainly it's something that a qualified doctor can get on the witness stand in the punishment phase of the case and discuss. There are a couple of articles that I would refer you to, and which I consider to be just superb in the area of mitigation. One is the amicus brief that was filed in Roper versus Simmons back in 2005. You will receive that cite in short order. The other is an article delivered in this year's Journal of Law and Psychiatry that talks in terms of the juvenile, but the factors are still the same. Lastly, I want to talk about, when we talk about youthful offenders in mitigation, it's somewhat of a paradox because we know that we have certain standards that this society incorporates that basically modifies the behavior and does not permit certain actions on the part of a young person versus an adult. The right to vote, the right to go to a bar. That's a recognition that the individual is not mature enough, mental maturity, to be allowed to participate in those types of activities reserved for the adult. The reverse should be true. The brain development of the youthful offender isn't at a level whereby that person should receive the type of punishment that an adult receives for the same offense.